It's time for another episode of Let's Talk Business South Carolina, featuring industry outlooks, panel discussions on trending topics, and interviews with business executives, community leaders, and government officials. And now, coming to you from the Drum Creative Studio, here's your host, longtime South Carolina business publisher, Rick Jenkins.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Business South Carolina. I believe we're up to episode number 29. As always, we're coming to you from the Drum Creative Studios, and I am your host, Rick Jenkins. You know, over the past few months on this show, if you watch it, you know that I've been talking to all kinds of folks in all kinds of different industries about artificial intelligence. It seems that AI is creeping into every industry that there is. As a matter of fact, I can't think of an industry that is not or will not eventually be impacted by artificial intelligence. Today, we're going to talk about a real-world application of AI, and I'm looking forward to this conversation because we're going to talk about a supplier of AI and their client and how they're working together to solve a problem. I got two folks that are joining me. One is Rick Oppedisano. He is the founder and CEO of Delta Bravo AI, and his client with Trane Technologies is Tyrone Ellis, and Tyrone is the aftermarket engineering leader for the Americas for Trane. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you, Rick. Happy to be here.
And it is good to have you guys here. Rick, you joined me on the show not too long ago, and we talked about all kinds of stuff, including AI types of things, and we're going to do it again today, but in a slightly different format. Tyrone, I'm going to start with you. You, of course, work for Trane Technologies, and I think folks know Trane. You all manufacture HVAC and refrigerator systems, a lot of other things as well. Aftermarket engineering leader for the Americas sounds like a big job. What do you do, man?
Great. Thanks for the question, and it's great to be here. I guess first, typically when our products actually get into the marketplace after we install something for a customer on the commercial HVAC side or residential side, obviously the parts and service associated with us, keeping that equipment running throughout its life cycle, that's where my portion of the business is. So the aftermarket is after it's sold to a customer and installed, that's when we kick in. My teams and I, we support that, from a technical perspective and engineering perspective after that point on.
So you've got Americas in the title, but I want to be sure, you sit in which market?
In the Southeast is where we are headquartered for North America.
But correct. Your office is?
Actually right outside of Charlotte.
Outside of Charlotte?
Right outside of Charlotte, that's correct.
All right,
yes.
I got you. Rick, like I said, you've been on the show before. Delta Bravo is basically a software company that specializes in artificial intelligence, several other things, and you can explain that to us in a second. But, I was looking on your website, and it said something interesting. It says, and I'm reading, you help clients build their own AI co-pilot. One, explain a little bit about what that means, and then give me a little better idea of the services that Delta Bravo provides.
Yeah, so philosophically, we believe that manufacturing and civil infrastructure reflect the best of humanity. I mean, 100 years ago, 90% of the world was starving, right? Not everybody had ready access to heat and water, right? So we look at these two things that we think drive humanity forward, and we apply AI to make them even better. So on the manufacturing side, we help manufacturers reduce cost per unit by improving quality, by improving equipment reliability, by improving throughput, and giving their workforce a new type of tools for them to learn quicker, to reduce those training cycles, find more joy in the job. And that's really what the role of the AI Copilot. And, when you look at what the AI Copilot does specifically, it takes complex decision-making and it simplifies it instantly. And it's real time. It's, an operator in a manufacturing plant that's looking at continuous chemical processing or something complex where they're like, shoot, do I add more of this chemical? Do I take away some of this chemical? What do I do right now in the heat of battle? And the AI Copilot figures all of that out for them in a way that gives them a high probability for success and communicates with them in a way that's really easy and simple for them to understand and make a decision quickly.
Today we're going to be talking, and I talked to you about this before we came on, both of you, and Rick, you shared with me that we were going to be talking about something called circularity and remanufacturing. Now, admittedly, these are terms that I really wasn't familiar with, although logically it makes sense. I can guess what they are, right? But I hadn't heard those terms before. And not only those, but how AI plays a part in what is called the circular economy. Okay? So we're going to get into that, folks, but I want to set the stage first. And so let me say a couple things here and lead you all down a road, and we're going to circle back to it. Advanced manufacturing, technology boom, huge boom over the last several years, right? Industry 4.0 is what we talk. I'm not going to bother with a definition of that. You can Google it or so if you wish. But there are artificial intelligence, one of the big players in Industry 4.0 and advanced manufacturing and smart factories and that kind of thing. And there's all kinds of applications for it. Tyrone, I'm going to start with you. Mm-hmm. What challenge were you guys dealing with at Trane that made you decide, I need a fix? Mm-hmm. And did you ever think that AI was that fix?
Yeah, great question. So I'll first start off just kind of set up the framework. We 4 years ago, we actually formed Trane Technologies as a spinoff from Ingersoll Rand. And part of that mission, that the reason we did that, it was from what we call a pure play climate innovation company. And so the intent for us is really focused on sustainability and how we can impact our industry with driving change, positive change for the world. And so with that, what we did was, committed to something called the Gigaton Challenge. So the Gigaton Challenge means we're going to reduce our impact, our carbon footprint impact to our customers, and so emissions. You think about all products have some type of emissions, a lot of refrigerants in HVAC systems, right, that can have a negative impact on the environment. So we committed we're going to reduce that by a gigaton before 2030. That's why it's called the Gigaton Challenge. And so with that,
define gigaton.
Gigaton, yeah, that's a bunch of zeros behind it, right?
That's right.
Yeah, it's a big number. Let's put it like that.
Is it just a word you say, or does it really mean exactly what it means in terms of a gigaton?
Exactly what it means.
Okay, got it.
That's correct. And so we said by 2030, we're going to actually have a positive impact on our customers via our products and its design, right, by 2030. So, which we're pretty excited about. We're on pace to do that. So with that, part of that commitment is something called circularity. How we start implementing circularity, circular systems, right? And so, what do we mean by circularity? In essence, less than 10% of products ever created in history are actually circular. They're typically linear, meaning you design it. You build it in manufacturing, you give it to a customer, and then it's discarded. So that would be a very linear process, right? The whole concept of circularity is you actually design it, you build it, and then instead of throwing it away into waste streams when it's over, you basically reuse the parts or some of the subsystems into reuse them again, second or third time. So it's really a very simple concept when we say circular. And so it's a huge opportunity when you think about, I hear a lot of folks that use the term, taking trash and turning into treasure, right? Yeah. And so it's a very positive impact on our customers because you have already a lot of the negative, emissions and things coming from that part has already been consumed in its first life. And so as you use it a second time, it actually has a real positive impact on our systems and on our customers' performance when it comes to the product. And so we actually have started down this path of trying to really change the narrative around this linear system perspective. How can we actually start reusing parts a second and third and fourth time, how many times we can before it's actually discarded?
Well, that makes perfect sense to me, and I can understand that problem is an easy one to identify, but what I have trouble comprehending is how you ever would have thought, or someone would think, that artificial intelligence plays a part in fixing that challenge. Yeah. So again, how did you figure that out? And two, how did you find your way to this guy to help you fix it?
Awesome. So when you think about understanding where your product is in the country, in the world, we have a lot of data. We have a lot of information, but that's good and it's bad. The bad part of that is, it's so much data. What do we do? There's multiple systems.
Paralysis by analysis.
That's right, exactly. It's a lot of data, and I think if you understand artificial intelligence and AI, one of the real tremendous benefits that comes from that when you have a lot of data is using the advanced technologies to figure out to tell a story, right? To get that information out to something we can use. And so I actually learned about Delta Bravo through SCMEP, actually. So certainly had the opportunity. I actually served on their as one of their board of directors, and had the opportunity to learn about Delta Bravo and their capability. And so when we saw the need for the that we had, I thought about Rick and his organization. Yeah, I know that they've been very successful in the projects they've done with their customers. And so he and I connected, and that's how the project started.
Just as a reminder, folks, SCMEP, South Carolina Manufacturing Extension Partnership, they are a part of NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology. They are a nonprofit organization. There's one in every state. They are federally funded and state funded to the tune of $4 or $5 million, but their goal basically is to help manufacturers in the state of South Carolina in any way a manufacturer needs help. So I just wanted to bring you up to speed there. Rick, let's turn to circularity and remanufacturing. You explained it to me this way. You said circularity is the concept, remanufacturing is the business, and AI is the enabler. I think that's a great way to explain it, but walk me through it.
Sure. So in addressing the challenge that Trane had, the first thing we had to do is understand what parts are available in the market. Where are they? How can we put a model around understanding when they'll be available? When is the best time to try to find them, right? And so these guys had decades of historic sales data. So, we would know where the part was sold. But as you're aware, every part is going to perform differently based on the context they're in. So a part that's on the top of a Home Depot in, Boston is going to probably have, that part will have had a different life experience than a part that was maybe on a school in Phoenix, right? So what we did is we started off by saying, let's take a look at all of this data and start to create profiles for each of these parts. Let's take a look at the Trane's original life expectancy equation for these parts. Let's factor in things like weather, things like context of use, age, all of these things, and put it all together to create kind of a segment model that would say, there's a tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 for these types of parts. The tier 1 parts are these types of parts that are in this environment that have been used this way. That's where, that's going to be our fastest route to value. Tier 2 is going to take a little bit longer to get those guys out. Maybe they've had, a little bit of a tougher life, right? Then tier 3 is going to be maybe your longer term plays. These parts will enter the market a little bit later. We'll deal with them when, we'll see if they go into tier 2 or tier 1. So the first problem is identifying, kind of where the parts are, kind of really understanding where are the available raw materials in this market. Now, the second part is I'd really identifying the opportunity. Okay, so when you think about a business, you understand where the raw materials are. The next is, which ones do we go for first? What are what parts are in the most demand? What parts can we remanufacture quickly? And then drive the highest level of value back to the customer and the supplier, and also margin back to Trane. And so we've gone through an exercise where we identify and basically take a look at the market value of certain parts versus the time that it would take to acquire them versus remanufacturing. And then that brings us to the last piece, which is, now, congratulations, you've got your business model and you've got your part. Now we've got to remanufacture it. And remanufacturing that is one heck of a tough business. Because imagine making something that your customer in the market is expecting you to live up to the same level of consistent quality every single time, but your raw materials are different every time. So imagine, Starbucks, right? They make coffee, it tastes the same every cup. But imagine if, you said to Starbucks, hey, guess what? You're going to have 150 different types of beans that you got to use every single day, and it's going to be different every hour, every day, right? So that's going to be a real challenge to create consistency. And so this is where AI comes in with remanufacturing, is that AI allows you to essentially model out all of those inconsistencies, the way that these parts have lived, and create individualized, essentially, formulas for handling quality issues, to optimize production, to essentially remanufacture that part at a higher level of quality, faster, and with a lower defect rate.
So we're talking predictive analytics. We're talking forecasting, supply and demand. That's what we're getting at, right? So let's back up a second.
Yep.
Let's talk about everything that Rick said, but let's talk about it in terms of actual parts so I can understand. Now, you deal with HVAC systems.
Correct.
So let's say a part is a fan, okay? All right, and we know that you're putting all kinds of information together, and we know that fans in this particular market, because it's hotter or colder or whatever, last X amount of time, right? Is that what we're talking about? And then in some ways, somehow, Rick works his magic, and the software works its magic and says that, you know what, these parts are going to go bad in March of next year. Okay, I'm just saying,
Right.
Is that kind of the basics of what we're talking about?
You got it, exactly.
Yeah?
Yeah, that gives us basically a forecasting model, right? So it helps us to understand the opportunity that's out there for a part that we could remanufacture. And the nice thing about remanufacturing is that it gives us the opportunity to shorten lead times. So if you know when the part's coming back, you can plan whether it's your internal remanufacturing organization or a partner that you may have. You can actually get that part back to the place it needs to go to, have it remanufactured, and get it back in our distribution centers to be able to satisfy customers. And so we found that you can really shorten lead times with a remanufactured part that actually helps with customer be successful.
Let me make sure I got you, okay? Yeah. So you look at a spreadsheet that is spit out by this great piece of AI, and it says that in the making something up, in Q4 next year, you're going to have 516 parts that are going to go bad. And you want to get ahead of the game. And you know that you're going to have to remanufacture X number of them. Some of them will be bought, some will be replaced. And so with that information, you can remanufacture however many parts that the software tells you you're going to need. Am I got it?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep, exactly. And so that really, by having that predictive analytics, that really helps us to satisfy our customers faster and with reliable parts. So that's what it's all about.
Okay, got it. We know where the opportunity is. How much opportunity are we talking about, Rick? I'll start with you.
Well, it's a big picture thing. Because in the short term, you've got these business model adjustments, process optimizations. These are really interesting things to learn about. But when I think about the big picture, what I see the real opportunity here is really to provide some additional level of purpose. And so let me explain this. Like I said earlier, I believe that manufacturing, civil infrastructure, this has propelled society forward. Somewhere along the lines, whether it's social media, whether it's the pandemic, I feel that a lot of younger people have become disconnected with finding purpose in their work. And when I take a look at this, the circularity, the remanufacturing, this is something that I think that people have kind of become disconnected from their land, like they're disconnected from nature. And I think that this is a really interesting thing that is compelling for young people. It brings young people back into the business of manufacturing. It brings regional economies back into play. Because if you're looking at the type of things that you're talking about here with remanufacturing, what that really means is that you're regionalizing your supply chain at some level. And you're doing something here that affects the economy of that region, the ecology of that region. And so I think that when you put all those things together, when you put sustainability concepts like this together with making things with manufacturing, I mean, what a great way to get young people back in. What a great way to get, give young people purpose again. I look at AI and I just see so many opportunities to fill this void that we see in the folks that are early in the workforce. Mm-hmm. And I just see this as it's funny when we first started talking about it, I was like you, I didn't pick up on all of it. I was like, okay, so we're doing what? And now that, Tyrone is kind enough to, take the time to educate me. But I look at it, I'm like, man, what a fantastic effort. It's a humanity effort. And like I said, I just think that it's an incredible way to start, reconsidering how people drive purpose and what they do for work.
In this day and age of eco-friendly culture that we live in, I can understand exactly what you're saying. I think that's a great point. Tyrone, I'm going to turn back to you for a second. What is it that you want this software to provide, or what is it actually providing? I would assume you spit out reports and you get information, but how does that work? Where does that information come from? Where does it go? I would assume it kind of goes out into the field, right? And things happen.
Yeah, no, good question. being in manufacturing for many years, certainly one of the foundations of lean is first you got to be able to see, right? You got to be able to see visibility, transparency, and so what this system gives us is data, gives us that visibility. So with that, I mean we can react to that, and so you think about and really get in front of being prepared for our customers better. And so there's certain parts of the country that we can take this data and look at, hey, we need certain parts here at this hub or at this DC versus a different part at this specific location. And so we can actually get in front of that because we understand what's going to happen with our customers better, and that helps us to be able to target our remanufacturing parts, having the right part at the right time, the right place, right? And that's really what it's all about. So it gives us that visibility and transparency to really be smarter, make better decisions, and get prepared to be able to satisfy our customers, which helps our business grow, right? And
right.
So it's a good thing.
Right. I mean, the end result, or what you're really trying to accomplish is driving margin and decreasing expense. I mean,
Exactly.
that's what you're coming down to, and you're doing that through predicting what's going to happen in the future. I'm with you. I appreciate you guys sharing all this. Still got a couple more things, but when we first started the conversation, I was confused, and now I'm not, man. I got it. Is really good stuff. All right, a couple more things. AI, we know there's all kinds of great stuff about AI. Opportunities, truly endless, right? But there are certain things about AI that is a challenge, and it's controversial to some degree in a lot of ways. And one of the ways it's controversial is deep fake stuff, right? You've seen probably stories over the last few weeks about, the example I'm going to use is Biden. President Biden, they faked his voice and they sent it out, and he said things that he didn't say. So my question, and Rick, I'll start with you. My question is AI going to be regulated in some way, and how in the heck do you regulate such things?
Yeah, okay. So I've got some fairly well-formed and mildly controversial opinions.
I love it.
So I will summarize them.
Okay.
By saying yes, there's absolutely needs to be some level of government involvement. But the way that the Biden administration has started that through the Biden executive order is the absolute wrong way to go. So we have been here before in society.
I'm sorry, Rick, but tell me the Biden executive order.
So the Biden executive order is a series of, I wouldn't call them rules, I would call them guide points that essentially require AI companies like us, people that are making the actual solution, to report to government about certain aspects of the solution as it's being built. And I would compare it conceptually to Sarbanes-Oxley in finance or Graham-Leach-Bliley. And prior to this, I helped to run a publicly traded company. And we had about $1 million in overhead that every year was dedicated to maintaining the bloat that we needed for regulatory compliance. And so when you take a look at this, what does it do? It slows down innovation. It adds a layer of regulatory capture, which is another fancy word. I encourage everybody to Google or look on Bill Gurley on YouTube about regulatory capture. And it's just, in the end, it prevents us from using AI in a positive way that benefits society. Now, let me just really wrap this up. We've been here before, okay? We were here with the PC. We were here with the electronic calculator that everyone thought was going to take away all the math jobs, okay? And what happened at the time was that the government at that time only created agencies and only created regulations that helped advance the cause, and they did not litigate or regulate against problems before they had them. So there's an aspect of the Biden executive order that puts AI on trial. It's like those pre-crime things. Like, was that old movie Minority Report?
Yes.
So AI has kind of been convicted of a pre-crime if you look at the Biden executive order. And what they're doing is, instead of regulating against outcomes, all right? Because here's the thing. You think about how law works. Law works in a way where you regulate against outcomes. Do not kill anyone. Do not steal anything. Do not commit fraud, right? These are outcomes, all right? It doesn't regulate against saying, don't drive a white car on the way to robbing the bank. You know what I mean? And so that's that.
Great analogy.
Yeah. So there's a lot of that in the Biden executive order that, and again, if you take a look at the New York Times versus OpenAI lawsuit, this is what's going to shape the market. The regulatory stuff, at least the way that the Biden EO approaches it, is a thinly veiled attempt at regulatory capture. That's what it is. All it's doing is going to slow innovation down and bloat government. Right? Again, this is my perspective. The lawsuit between the New York Times and OpenAI, now that's different. All right. I would compare that to what you saw with the antitrust lawsuits with Google or with Microsoft, where the result of that was that the market was redefined in a way where the rules are outlined now. You can't do this, you can do this. And it started to create all these different competitors, all these different sub-products, right? Think about it. If there's no Microsoft antitrust trial, there is no Google, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, think about it. There would only be Microsoft Edge or whatever Explorer, right? There'd be no Google. So that's the way the market needs to evolve in AI, is that people need to innovate. They need to be able to touch the electric fence, understand where the electric fence is. The government supports the electric fence, and then we get creative again, and we find our way to create value within the boundaries.
Tyrone, thoughts?
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot to think about.
Yeah, it's a lot to think about, Rick.
About.
Certainly the nature of his job is closer to some of the details in the order. For me and for us, certainly we are big advocates of AI in a what I would call secure environment. The electric fence, I'll put it like that, right? Yeah. So, I mean, we actually have solutions, applications for our employees within the company that actually have gone through due diligence to ensure that the company's protected, right? That's really important for us. And so, like our own internal ChatGPT environment that we have, right? Yep. So for us, we're advocates of what the technology can do, but also within a secure umbrella, so to make sure that the company's IP and other things are protected. So that's kind of the way I view it, and I'm a big advocate of using technology. It's amazing though how employees react to it. They love it. They absolutely love it. I mean, because it makes their job easier. Right. They've got better information. They can solve problems for customers. And so when you can do that, it's like everyone really gets behind it in our organization.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because what we're seeing is that, there's some of this fear, uncertainty, and doubt that people hear about with AI. Is it going to replace my job? Am I going to lose my job? But what we see in real life is that when we go in and we talk about it, people are fascinated. They hear about it every day. They see the commercials during the football games, and they want to be a part of it. And what's really great about AI is that in order for it to work, you do have to bring people into the tent.
Sure.
There's no way that this works without involving people, getting their perspective, going across multiple functions, multiple parts of the process. I mean, that's really the beautiful thing about AI. And because I think that, again, I think that we've lost a lot in society over these last, several years in terms of people connecting with people again, whether it's remote work, whether it's people just being separated by their processes. AI brings the best out of people from a collaborative perspective again. So I think there's just a lot there. And again, you guys do a great job with that. And there's just a lot there, like I said, in terms of just, what this is doing to bring people back together again, to bring the best out of people.
Well, the only thing I care about is, number one, that nobody deep fakes me, and number two, that Terminators don't take over the world. All right, I'm going to get you both out of here on this. Technology, manufacturing, technology increasing at a blistering pace. It's amazing to me. It wasn't too long ago that 3D printing was the big thing, additive manufacturing, and now, whatever. So tell me, and I'll start with you, Tyrone, do you have any feel for what might be next on the horizon?
Well, certainly I can talk about the remanufacturing space, because that one's near and dear to my heart. And so I think if you look at there's a lot of complexity, as Rick mentioned, within the world of remanufacturing, because you have a lot of variation in your what we call the core, what's coming into a remanufacturing plant. There's all types of what I would say things that we've used in manufacturing that you couldn't use in remanufacturing in the past that actually are catching up. And so, the opportunity to do 3D scanning around a core that can give you precise information to tell you whether or not you should even try to remanufacture this part, right? The data is great that, as Rick mentioned, then you can have that physical type verification that can tell you, and some of that stuff is happening in the field. So you can actually get equipment that can help do that remotely for a technician, and then it determines that that's not even a candidate to return back to a remanufacturing plant.
Right.
And that's like in seconds. So that's all types of things happening. I'll give another one, parts ID. When you have parts identification, when you have certainly parts that have been in the field for a long time, sometimes a customer or a technician can't even tell you what the part number is. And so there's all types of opportunity here that's happening today to identify a part that was produced 30 years ago, right? To be able to identify that part based on the geometry and using AI to go find information from across multiple different sources to give us that background on that part.
Correct.
And so there's a lot of things happening in that space that really helps us to feed into remanufacturing.
Rick, what's next?
I think what's next, it's a series of business outcomes that are going to be either really good or really bad. And so I think that from a technology perspective, what's next is the adoption of this. All right. So I don't think there's going to be this big sea change because manufacturing is a process-oriented business. They do not move quickly. I think what we are going to see is that there's really going to be one of two kinds of businesses that live through this. Businesses that are people plus AI, or businesses that go out of business because they were too scared, too slow, too afraid. Now, good analogy for this. I really think this is a 3-year window, all right, specifically. And the best analogy I could give you was 100 years ago in 1924, there was an extremely profitable business. And that extremely profitable business was in every single city in the U.S. And what they did is they would shovel up manure behind the horse-drawn carriage. Now, in 1924, people saw cars. They knew that they were out there. They were aware. But these manure guys said, you know what? We got plenty of time. In 1925, Henry Ford figures out a way to deal with the banks to allow people to have their own car loans, to purchase cars and pay for them over time. In 1926, the automotive exploded by 300,000% in sales. All right. And by 1927, there's no more manure business. So that's the cycle we're in. So I think that's going to be what's next, is to see who decides that they want to be alive and who crawls up and gets bought for pennies on the dollar.
Yeah. You said we're in a 3-year window. Did the window just open?
I think the window's open. Yeah, I think
Okay,
24,
so,
20. I think 23 was one of those years. That was an education and evangelism and pilot year.
Right.
I think it's open now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Guys, great stuff, man. I appreciate you both. Folks, that is Rick Oppedisano. He is the founder and the owner of Delta Bravo AI, and Tyrone Ellis. He is the aftermarket engineering leader for the Americas for Trane Technology. And that is another episode of Let's Talk Business South Carolina. Appreciate you joining us. We'll see you next time.